I am 78 years old, and when my husband died last winter, I sat at the edge of the bed and realized I could breathe again. I didn't cry right away. That came later, in smaller pieces, not the way people expect. What I felt first was space, a kind of quiet I had not known in years. It frightened me a little, how quickly it came, and how natural it felt. I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth, and at this age I don't have much use for anything else. I don't know how much time I have left. My doctor speaks gently now, avoids numbers. My hands tremble when I button my coat, and I forget the names of neighbors I've known for decades. So I'm saying this while I still can, while the memories are still in the right places. We married when I was 23. That's what women did then, or at least what I thought women were supposed to do. He had a steady job, a firm voice, and a way of making decisions quickly. I mistook that for strength. Maybe it was in some ways. His name was Farouk. The first apartment we had was small, 2 rooms and a narrow kitchen with a window that barely opened. I remember standing there in the mornings, watching dust float in the sunlight while I made tea. He liked it strong, almost bitter. I learned that quickly. In those early years, I don't remember feeling unhappy. That's important to say. I wasn't trapped in some obvious way. There were no dramatic scenes, no shouting that shook the walls. It was quieter than that. He worked long hours. I stayed home at first, then later took a job at a school nearby. We settled into something that looked, from the outside, like a good life. We had 2 children, a boy first, then a girl. I remember the night our son was born. Farouk stood at the foot of the hospital bed, not touching me, just watching. When the nurse placed the baby in my arms, I looked at him, waiting for something, a smile maybe, something soft. He nodded, that was all. "He looks healthy," he said. I told myself that was enough, that men showed love differently, that I shouldn't expect too much. That phrase stayed with me for years. Don't expect too much. It's a quiet sentence, but it changes how you live. In our 30s, life became busier. School fees, groceries, small illnesses, repairs around the house. We spoke mostly about practical things. What needed to be done? What was missing? There were moments, though, small ones. Once I tried to tell him about a book I had read. I don't even remember the title now. I was standing near the sink, hands still wet, talking about a character who had left her life behind and started over. Farouk listened for a minute, then said, "These stories fill your head with nonsense. Real life is not like that." He wasn't angry, just dismissive, as if I had said something childish. I stopped talking about books after that. It wasn't a decision I made out loud, it just faded. That's how most things went. Not taken, not forbidden, just slowly set aside. In our 40s, the children grew older. They needed us less, in different ways. I thought maybe then we would find each other again, that there would be time for conversation, for something more than routine. But by then we had become used to silence. He had his habits. Watching the news at a certain hour, sitting in the same chair, eating at the same time every day. If anything shifted, even slightly, he would grow uneasy. I adjusted myself around that. I told myself it was easier. There's a kind of comfort in predictability, even when it feels narrow. You don't question it much. You just move within it. Looking back now, I can't point to a single moment where everything went wrong. That's what makes it harder to explain. There was no betrayal, no sudden collapse, just years, quiet years, missed conversations, things I wanted to say but didn't, questions I never asked. Sometimes, late at night, I would lie awake and listen to him breathing beside me, heavy, steady. And I would feel separate, not angry, not even sad exactly, just alone. I wondered if he felt it too. I never asked. By the time we reached our 50s, we were more like two people sharing a space than a married couple. We knew each other's routines perfectly, but not much else. Our son moved abroad. Our daughter married and settled in another city. The house grew quieter. You would think that would bring two people closer. That's what I believed for a long time. But silence doesn't always invite connection. Sometimes it just makes the distance more noticeable. He spoke less as he aged. Or maybe I just noticed it more. There were days when the only words between us were about meals. Did you eat? Yes. Is there more tea? In the kitchen. That was enough, apparently. I remember one afternoon very clearly. I must have been around 60. I was sitting by the window mending a shirt. The sunlight was soft, and there was a breeze that moved the curtain just slightly. I looked at him, sitting in his chair, and I realized if I disappeared that day, he might not notice until dinner. It wasn't a cruel thought, just an observation, and instead of feeling angry, I felt tired. That was the first time I understood something had been lost that I could not name. In our 60s, his health began to change. Nothing dramatic at first. A cough that lingered, fatigue, a reluctance to leave the house. I took him to appointments, kept track of medications, adjusted meals. I became attentive in a way I hadn't been before. Not out of renewed love, I think, but out of duty and habit. He depended on me, and I responded to that. There is a strange closeness in caregiving. You are needed constantly. You have a role, a purpose. But it is not the same as being seen. Sometimes, while helping him sit up or handing him a glass of water, I would search his face for something. Recognition, maybe? Gratitude. A softness that had been missing all those years. Occasionally, I thought I saw it, or maybe I imagined it. It didn't last. The illness stretched on for years, not severe enough to end things quickly, not mild enough to be ignored. We lived in that in-between. Our children visited when they could. They spoke kindly to him, brought small gifts, stayed for a few days. Then they left, returning to their own lives. I never blamed them for that. It's the natural order of things. Still, the house would feel heavier after they left. In those final months, he barely spoke at all. I sat beside him often, listening to the clock on the wall. Tick, 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 time moving in a straight line, not waiting for anything. One evening he reached for my hand. It surprised me. His grip was weak but deliberate. He looked at me. Really looked. In a way he hadn't in years. I thought he might say something important. Something that would gather all those silent years into a single moment. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His hand relaxed. That was it. I waited, but nothing came. He died 2 weeks later. It was early morning. The light was just beginning to come through the curtains. I had fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed. When I woke, the room felt different, still. I stood up, went to him, and knew immediately. I called the doctor, then our children. There were procedures, people coming and going, quiet conversations in the hallway. I moved through it all without thinking much. It was only later, when the house was empty again, that I sat on the edge of the bed, and I breathed, deeply, fully, as if I had been holding something inside for years without realizing it. And that's when the feeling came. Not grief, not yet. Relief. It passed quickly, but it was there, clear and undeniable. I have thought about that moment many times since. What does it mean to feel relief when someone dies? It doesn't erase the years. It doesn't cancel whatever form of love existed. But it reveals something that was hidden, even from myself. I think I had been carrying the weight of our silence for a very long time. And when he was gone, that weight lifted. Not because I wished him gone. I didn't. but because the life we had built, quiet, careful, limited, had finally ended, and with it, the expectation that things might still change. That is what I lost, I think. Not just him, but the possibility that we could have been different. That possibility lingered for decades, even when there was no real sign of it. I held on to it without realizing, and when he died, it disappeared, completely. There is a kind of finality in that, a clean line. People talk about closure as if it's something you achieve. It's not like that. It arrives on its own, usually too late to be useful. Now, at 78, I live alone in the same house. The routines are mine now. I decide when to eat, what to watch, whether to speak at all. The silence is still here, but it feels different. It belongs to me. Sometimes I sit by the same window and think about the life we had. Not with bitterness, not even with much sadness, just clarity. We were not unhappy in a way that demands attention, but we were not fully present with each other either. We let things remain unsaid. We assumed there would be time. There is always that assumption. If you are listening to this, I don't have advice for you. That's not why I'm speaking. I only know what it felt like to reach the end of something and realize how much of it was lived quietly, without question. How easy it is to adjust, to settle, to tell yourself that this is simply how life is. Maybe it is for many people, but there are small moments, conversations you don't start, feelings you don't name, that don't come back later. They don't wait for a better time. They just pass. I don't regret my entire life. That would be too simple, and it wouldn't be true. There were good days, there was stability, there were children and a home, and years that moved forward in a steady line. But there was also something missing, something I didn't understand until it was no longer possible to find it. Now, when I wake in the morning, I sit for a while before getting up. I listen to the quiet, I breathe, and I think about how strange it is that it took a lifetime to feel this kind of space. I don't expect anything more now. There isn't time for that, but there is enough time to be honest, at least once. If you have someone beside you, and there are things you have not said, I suppose I would want you to notice that. Not fix it, not rush, just notice. Because one day there will be a final morning, a room that feels different, and a breath that comes easier than you expected, and you will have to live with whatever that means. I am 78. I have lived most of my life already, and now, in the quiet that remains, I am learning what it feels like to breathe on my own.